The quantum theory is only controversial when you talk to philosophers, theologians, and the average person. To a physicist, it's accurate to 1 part in 10 billion. We can take an atom, shine a laser beam at it, and I can predict the properties to 1 part in 10 billion. The consequences are the internet, GPS, laser beams, computers, fiber optics, a broadband internet. All of that is a consequence of the quantum theory. Now, you'd think that a theory that powerful would be logical, compelling, and intuitive. Wrong. It is the most bizarre theory ever proposed in the history of science. Einstein couldn't get his head around it. It reduces everything to probability so that there's a probability that electrons can vanish, reappear someplace else. Electrons can be 2 places at the same time and exist in multiple states at the same time. Now, that's stupid. I mean, how can you possibly exist 2 places at the same time? How can you be in multiple states simultaneously? Well, get used to it. That's just the way the atomic world is. So why don't I vanish and reappear someplace else, like on Mars or the Moon? There is a probability that I'll do that. In fact, we give our PhD students at our college a question. Calculate the probability that you will vanish and wind up on the planet Mars. Give me a number. It turns out you have to wait longer than the lifetime of the universe for that to happen. But it's a calculable number. This is insane. This is absolutely counterintuitive. But the problem is, it's right. That's how our world is constructed. Our world is stranger than you realize at the atomic level. Now, we don't see it because we average out all these bizarre quantum effects. We're large objects. We consist of a lot of atoms. But at the atomic level, electrons exist in multiple states all the time. And you know what that's called? That's called the laser beam.
Einstein was asked the big question, is there a God? Is there a meaning to everything, right?
Right.
And here's how Einstein answered the question. He said, there really are 2 kinds of gods. We have to be very scientific. We have to define what you mean by God. If God is the God of intervention, the personal God, the God of prayer, the God that parts the waters, then he had a hard time believing in that. Would God listen to all our prayers for a bicycle for Christmas and smite the Philistines for me, please?
Right.
He didn't think so. However, he believed in the God of order, harmony, beauty, simplicity, and elegance, the God of Spinoza. That's the God that he believed in because he thought the universe was so gorgeous. It didn't have to be that way. It could have been chaotic. It could have been ugly, messy. But here we have the fact that all the equations of physics can be placed on a simple sheet of paper.
Right.
Einstein's equation is only 1 inch long. And the quantum theory is about 1 yard long, but you can squeeze it onto a sheet of paper.
Right, with a small enough font. No.
Right. And with string theory, you could even put those 2 equations together. And string theory can be squeezed into an equation 1 inch long. And that equation, by the way, is my equation. That's string field theory. That's my contribution.
Right.
But we want to know, well, where did that equation come from? You know, this is what Einstein asked. Did God have a choice? Was there any choice in building a universe? When he woke up in the morning, he would say, I'm going to create a universe. I'm going to be God today. What kind of universe would I create? This is how he created much of his theories.
In parallel worlds, you discuss time travel. Is it possible?
It could very well be possible. Stephen Hawking has said that, yes, time travel is possible, but not practical. In other words, don't expect an inventor to create a time machine in their basement today. We're talking about the energy of a star, the energy of a black hole. But in principle, if you could master that energy, then you might be able to bend time into a pretzel. The mathematics says so. Even Albert Einstein realized in 1949, his own equations allow you to go backwards in time. If the universe rotated, for example, a very simple kind of universe, a rotating universe, and you go with the flow, you go around the universe as it rotates, you can come back into the past. So simply walking around a circle, you come back not where you left, but you come back yesterday. So even Einstein realized, oh my God, his own equations allow for time travel. So in his memoirs, of course, Einstein had to address the question, is time travel possible? And he said, aha, I have found a loophole. And that is, the universe expands. It doesn't rotate. So it means that if the universe rotated, time travel would become commonplace. So thank goodness the universe expands.
Your equation of string field theory and your study into the topic. Do you find yourself agreeing with that concept of these multiple universes with many different incarnations, and maybe ours is one of many different types of universes?
You mean to ask me, is Elvis Presley alive in a parallel universe?
Yes.
The answer is maybe, possibly so. Let me explain. We physicists believe that our universe is like a soap bubble. We live on the skin of the soap bubble. We're like flies trapped on flypaper. We can't get off our soap bubble. But it's expanding. In fact, it's actually accelerating. We can actually see the end. We're all going to die in a big freeze when this gigantic bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, we physicists now believe there are other soap bubbles out there. There's no longer a universe. There's no longer a one world. There are many worlds. There are other soap bubbles out there. And these soap bubbles are called membranes, or brains for short. And they can collide. They can peel off, bud other universes. And we're going to test this theory in the coming years.
Yes.
Okay. All science is reproducible and testable. That separates us from religion, which is not reproducible and not testable.
Making contact with alien civilizations in outer space, how to deflect meteors, what happens when robots become super powerful. These are all subjects that we take in the second season. And, you know, some people ask me, well, why do this? And one thing is that I get to interview the world's top scientists in all these fields. So altogether, I've interviewed about 300 of the world's top scientists. So when I talk to them about the future, it's just not some science fiction writer just BSing about what he thinks the future is going to be. I'm talking to the scientists who are inventing the future in their laboratories. I have a front row seat to be able to get on the telephone, talk to Nobel laureates, directors of the major laboratories, and say, what is your dream? What do you think 2050, 2100 is going to look like? And to me, that's a thrill of a lifetime. Because instead of speculating, instead of moaning and groaning about when we're going to have flying cars, I can talk to the people who are inventing the future.
Now, we physicists today can teleport particles of light called photons. The world's record is 100 miles.
Wow.
From one Canary Island, we can zap a photon and it materializes on another Canary Island. We're going to do that next for the space shuttle. We're asking NASA for permission to set up on the space shuttle a device where we can teleport photons into space and back. And after 2020, when we go to the moon, we're going to teleport to the moon. There's no limit to how far we can teleport.
Wow.
And within 10 years, we'll teleport the first molecule, like water, for example. We can teleport beryllium. We can teleport atoms of cesium. Next will be a molecule, like water. After that, DNA. We may be able to teleport a virus. We may be able to teleport life forms. Now, Captain Kirk is more of a problem. Captain Kirk consists of 50 trillion cells. That's how many cells we have in the body. That will require centuries of work. But hey, Star Trek takes place in the 23rd century. That gives us enough time.
That's about right.
How did the cosmos begin, and how will it end?
Well, we think the universe began with a cosmic explosion 13.7 billion years ago. We know that number to within 1% accuracy, in fact.
How do we know that?
Well, we know the rate at which the universe is expanding. Stars, for example, yellow light from stars is stretched because they're moving away from us, and they turn reddish as a consequence. That's called the Doppler shift. When a car moves toward you, for example, the frequency is high. When a car moves away from you, the frequency is stretched or lowered. It sounds like this. Now, you've heard that all your life. But what is that? That's a Doppler effect. It also works for light beams. When yellow light comes toward you, it's bluish. When yellow light moves away from you, it's reddish. The redder it is, the faster it moves. So it's trivial to calculate the expansion of the universe. You simply look at the night sky and see how much the light is redshifted. Then you run the videotape backwards. We have this enormous, quote, videotape on computer of the expanding universe, so we run it backwards. You've all seen explosions run backwards on television. And then you get back to the point where the universe was a small little dot. That's how we know the universe began with a fiery explosion. And we can also pick up the afterglow of the Big Bang. When you get a radio and you turn it between stations, you get that static, that zzzz static. Believe it or not, a few percent of that static comes from the Big Bang itself. You were actually listening to Genesis on your radio. Your television set, when you have snow on your TV set, a few percent of that snow comes from the creation of the universe. More percent comes from planet Jupiter. Planet Jupiter also causes static on the Earth, which is more than the Big Bang. But we physicists have measured that microwave background radiation. We now have baby pictures of the infant universe. And you know what? It's an explosion. We have baby pictures of the explosion itself. And sure enough, it is a gigantic explosion, just like everyone thought. And we've actually now taken pictures of it in the microwave region. The big question is, how will the universe end? There are two ways it could end, in fire or ice. If it ends in ice, the universe keeps on expanding and gets colder and colder and colder. Or the universe could expand, stop, and then come back and get hotter and hotter and hotter in the big crunch. Either way, the laws of physics say we're doomed. Either we're going to die in fire or die in ice. But there's one way out of this death. The question is, the laws of physics, are they a death warrant for all intelligent life? Most physicists would say yes, that inherent within physics is a death warrant for all intelligent life in the universe, because either the universe dies in ice as it expands or dies in fire as it contracts. I think there's a loophole. The loophole is that billions, trillions of years from now, we'll be so advanced that as the universe dies, we will leave the universe. We will leave our bubble, have a lifeboat, and then go to another neighboring bubble and start all over again. So in other words, this theory of everything may ultimately be the theory of salvation for intelligent life in the universe. Now that's speculation. But in parallel worlds, I even give you the blueprint, the design, how much energy it would take to build a machine which would take us to a neighboring universe.